Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius. Today we're going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have a video about being a firefighter, a book explaining safety rules about lightning, and we have a totally awesome guest. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Nzondi.
Great to be here. Hey, I'm with the cool kid with glow, and if you didn't know, now you know. The Tiberius Show is the best from coast to coast.
Cool. Well, Nzondi was a middle school teacher that worked with kids to find different careers that would match their potential. He also is a well-known horror author as well.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Tiberius. This is awesome.
You're welcome. And today, we're going to start off with the video of the week, and this is going to be a burn.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
Today's video game is Firefighter Simulator. This game is made by 42-bit Studios. Because it's on Roblox, you are able to play it on PC, Mac, Xbox, and even your cell phone. And it is free.
I love it when it's free. That sounds great.
Well, this is the only game from 42-bit Studios.
Oh, okay. Tell us about it.
So first off, you start the game and you are surrounded by buildings on fire, and you have a small water pistol. There's a fire hydrant so you can fill up your water pistol, then you point it to the fence and put out the fire. Well, you get paid for the amount of flames you put out. Now, you run out of water fast, so you have to go ahead and purchase water tanks to hold more water to increase the power of your sprayer. Okay, so it seems like most simulator games. At first it was fun until I accidentally stepped in the fire. Oh no. And guess what happened?
What happened?
Nothing. I can't believe it. I'm like, nothing. No damage, no catching on fire, no nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Oh.
So really, this is a ripoff of Painting Simulator, a pressure washing simulator, and I was looking forward to the danger and having to avoid getting hurt.
You need the risk. Always need the risk.
Yeah. Always need a whisk. Oh, and there are unlocks to larger areas that have more fires, etc. That was cool, but once, you can't get hurt, you can just run into the burning building and put it out from the inside out. Easy.
I need more of a challenge, right?
She's like, wait, the floor's on fire? Okay, I have to put it out while I'm walking. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
Well, I give Firefighter Simulator 5 out of 10 stars because I really like that you could be a firefighter and put out fires, but I not like that you have any danger if you got too close to the fire. Big error there. See Tiberius Law.com.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
Wait, you are not Chuck.
My dad can help when people get hurt. He loves to help people.
If you are ever injured at work or in a car accident, you should call my friend Chuck.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
The website again is cwsmithlaw.com.
Offices, Orlando.
Does it actually have that much W's?
Now it's time for the book of the week, the 30-30 Rule. This book's written by RDS of Orlando. Oh, and it's presented by the Florida Division of Emergency Management. Language at the back of the book. In fact, Nzondi, would you like to do the honors?
Love to. Do you know the 30-30 rule? Go inside if you hear thunder within 30 seconds of a lightning flash. Wait at least 30 minutes after you hear thunder before going back outside. Be smart, be safe, be a survivor.
That's good. Well, this is not an AR book, so you don't get any extra points for reading it, but it is a great book about lightning and how to be safe when there's a storm. It seems to be written for first or second graders. So there are three main characters, Rabbit, Possum, and Squirrel. Squirrel's afraid of everything, and Possum never worries about anything, he just relaxes. And while Rabbit's all over the place helping his friends out. Well, while they were out playing, they heard on the radio that it might storm. Well, Squirrel was scared and went inside right away. Well, Possum really didn't care, and they didn't have it all day. But Rabbit, well, he remembered the 30-30 rule that he learned in school. Watch for dark clouds if you hear thunder within 30 seconds. Get inside the house right away. So when the storm arrived, the thunder was only 4 seconds from the lightning strike. He told his friend to get inside, but he did not wake up and listen and relax. Well, then thunder woke him up and he was soaking wet. And they got inside and stayed away from phones, tubs, and windows. I give the 30-30 rule 5 out of 10 stars because it was an okay book trying to prepare children to be safe in storms. And I know that when there's lightning, that each second before the thunder is another mile away that the storm is. So I guess that it's a good book for kids to learn.
That was a great review. I love the review.
You're welcome. And so they said it was only 4 seconds, right? And they got inside right away. It was only 4 miles away. So that was crazy. And now it's time for our interview of an interesting person. Today's guest is going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Nzondi.
I love it. That is one of the best introductions I've heard of myself. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Nzondi is an author that writes horror and was a middle school teacher that taught kids about different careers.
Yeah, I taught in New York. I'm in New York right now. I live in LA as well, 6 months out the year. But I taught for about 13 years. And in the last few years, I taught in Springfield Gardens, 8th grade, which was my favorite grade to teach. And it was amazing. And one of the first things that I learned about teaching students, and I applied it to my approach to teaching, is students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when I took that approach and let students know how much I care about them and their future and their careers, I really started to do well as a teacher and became one of the best teachers in that school.
Wow. So first off, how are you enjoying being on the show?
Oh, I love it. This is fantastic. A lot of energy. You just have really great topics. And I think you're natural. So this is awesome.
Thank you. Okay, so you are listed as an author that writes about horror. Now, we had someone talk about horror a few months ago, but just for a refresher, can you explain to my listeners exactly what is horror?
Horror, it basically, in the grassroots of it, is about fear. It's about fear of the unknown. And anytime you can write something and build up, in a person he doesn't know what's out there in the dark, under the bed, something mysterious is happening and they don't know why it's happening. And you build that suspense up based on that fear, you have horror.
Cool. Okay. So I can get that there's a lot of suspense. Are horror stories scary?
Some horror stories are scary, some aren't. Horror is a big genre. So, Godzilla is a monster. So, monster stories are horror. So it's not necessarily scary. King Kong is not necessarily scary, but you can enjoy that. And then there are a lot of vampire stories, like one of the ones that I'm writing right now, which it's not scary, but it has these dark kind of elements, monster elements, which make it horror, and it makes it fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you like to get scared?
Oh, I love to get scared. I love a movie that keeps me on the edge of my seat or a book that makes me not want to turn off the lights. I love it.
Well, guess what?
What?
Boo!
Yeah. And you know what? The best books gotta scare you. I think the best books, the best horror books, have a combination of those things where they really make you kind of, they make your heart race and they make you scared and they give you a nice, good boo. At the same time, they might make you laugh. They might have some funny things in it, some funny elements, and, they build up great suspense. And those are my favorite kind of horror stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, how'd you get the ideas of what to write about?
I get asked that a lot of times. And, it really depends on the day. Monday, Tuesday, today's Wednesday. So I think sometimes, my answer to today will be, it really depends on each person's life, what they've lived. And you bring your experiences in. For me, it's the things that I've had in the past, things that I've seen, movies I've seen, a lot of books that I've read, the experiences that happened to me. Sometimes when you have a really tough life, you're able to transfer that and translate it on the page and create something that's very, mystical and creative and interesting. And so for me, horror, and I'm inspired to write horror about everything that happens to me in my life. So it's a combination of things. It's kind of like a melting pot of things that happen to me.
Okay, well, how did you know that this was the go-to job for you?
Some things are just natural. And when I was very, very young, I'd say, about 8 or 9 years old. I'll tell you a story. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I went outside of this house as a kid. And back then, we used to get milk bottles from the milkman. And I went out to get the milk bottles, that the milkman had left. And there was little droplets of blood on the steps. And I was like, where did this come from? And I followed down the steps and saw the blood, went down the sidewalk, and I saw that there was blood going all the way to the next house and to the house on the left of us. And that was the first time I was really scared. And that was the first time that it made my mind creatively just invent these stories of what could have happened. Was it a dog that went up to the house? Was it this monster that came to the house and was trying to get in? This vampire, something like that. And from that day on, I started writing stories and telling stories to my little nieces and scaring them. And it just became something that, I got very fascinated with. So I love writing horror, and I love horror stories.
Wow. So what age level do you write most of your stories or books for?
Most of my books are, you know what? These are some really good questions that you're asking. Great questions. Most of my books are from ages 12 and up. So really from ages 12 to 100. Anyone, those age groups, which is a large age group, can enjoy my.
What about 11?
11 is just fine.
Okay.
Are you 11?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So how is being a horror author a benefit to the world?
I think it's a benefit to the world because you're able to. One thing about writing fiction is you're able to create worlds, and you're able to tell stories and have themes that can help people if you write it the right way. And a lot of horror writers, some of my mentors, and quite a few of my friends, we have these elements underneath that always, they don't preach, but they always have some type of theme that can help a person through their own lives. And if you do it just right, you can relate to a person that's going through something just as terrifying, and kind of help them through that creatively through a character that they can identify with. So, that's how we kind of help the world a little bit.
Mm-hmm. What was the one thing that you learned about yourself while being an author?
I learned that I can really be funny, that a lot of stuff that I write can be very goofy or, very humorous. And I didn't really consider myself a humorous guy. But once, a lot of my fans and the readers said that, I went back and looked at it, and I realized that the characters that I portray in my books go through just everyday things. Like I have, I remember one scene where, some of my younger characters were just laughing at, flatulence and what happened, during the scene. And that made the characters laugh a lot. And it also made the readers enjoy the story just that bit more.
Mm-hmm. Now, I heard that you worked on a Star Wars show. Can you tell me more about that?
Listen. Okay, so, one of my day jobs, after I left teaching, I retired from teaching, and I decided, I wanted to go after writing, and I needed some downtime, and I needed some flexibility. I started working as a stand-in for Hollywood. Now, what a stand-in is, or what they do, is basically, I'll give you more something that you can relate to. We're kind of like stuntmen, but we don't do the stunts, So although I have,
kind of like, a stand-in is kind of like a thing. So like, when someone's like sick and they have to perform, you take someone's place.
No, okay, that's great.
Close?
In theater, they do that in theater. But no, a stand-in, basically, we set up the shot. So instead of the actor being there the whole 18 hours, because sometimes the shot is like 12, 13 hours a day, we stand in, we actually stand in and we do the rehearsals. So we have to learn, we have to learn what the script is very quickly. We do the rehearsals. So the people that can light us and make sure the lighting is good for the actor, they light us. And we go through all the motions and the camera practices the moves. And then when they get it all right, they bring the actor in and then they shoot the shot. So we're the stand in. We stand in for that particular actor. And on Star Wars, like I've worked on a lot of different shows. I've had a lot of fun. But on Star Wars, it was one of the most amazing experiences. First of all, let me tell you, I can talk about it now because the shows have gone, they've shown. We can't talk about it usually when we're shooting it, but I worked on a show called The Book of Boba Fett, and I worked on Mandalorian. And let me tell you, I'm going to tell you this right now. One of my favorite, I want to say people, but one of my favorite creatures in the whole world is Grogu. Yes, he is real. Grogu is real. Baby Yoda is real. I've watched him, and he never stops just, being the cutest thing that you've ever seen in your life. And it just was an amazing experience. One of the things, I said I don't do stunts, but one of the things that I had to do was on the Book of Boba Fett. If you remember when he had to do, when the Mandalorian...
No spoilers.
Huh?
I haven't seen it yet.
It was a fight. It was a fight scene. Great. Thank you for saying no spoilers. It was a fight scene, and I had to fight in rehearsal with a lightsaber. Oh my God! Listen, and when me and my other stand-in friend finished, one of the directors of that episode was Bryce Dallas Howard, who is a wonderful actress and a great director. She ran up to me and said, "Oh my God, Ace, you guys were just as great as a stuntman," and it just was a great feeling to know that we worked so hard to do the best that we could in the rehearsals to prepare the actors and the stuntmen for the actual shooting. So it was just a wonderful show, great characters, great people. I loved it.
Wow. Okay, so you're also listed as a middle school teacher that teaches kids about different careers. Well, I kind of do that with my podcast, but what is the best part about teaching kids about different careers?
I used to tell my kids all the time, exposure plus experience equals appreciation. And the one thing that I wanted to show them is if I just expose them to different areas, I can pull out what they may be better in or what they're best in naturally, and then kind of help them groom or push them towards those careers. And the second thing is when a student finds out, the different types of monies that they can make, how much money, the salaries they can make with different careers, it really helps them too. So I think the best thing that for me, the most rewarding was really finding a student and kind of grooming them and pushing them in a career that they really loved. I really believe if you start real early, 11 years old, 12, 13, towards your career, by the time, you're in college, you're going to be way ahead of the game. So there you go. Yeah.
Well, which is more fun to do, writing about horror or helping kids with career choices?
Ooh, that's a great question. Now, so the answer, I will answer that two ways. The most rewarding is helping kids and helping students with their careers. The most fun is writing horror because I get to scare people. So I love that.
Or what about being a stand-in?
Steps, being a stand-in is fun, it's great, but that's like a step to me getting able to finish the books. And when I first started standing in, I hadn't written a book, and now I've written 4 books. So, what my goal is, and I'm almost there. I think this year I'll be there because last year was a phenomenal year for me. My goal is to just be a writer full time. And, I'll have a lot of friends that are writers and they teach while they write. I just want to write full time. So I'm getting almost there. So standing is kind of like taking steps, so it's like taking steps to get to my goal. It's kind of like doing homework. It's like doing homework. No one really loves doing homework, but we like getting the good grades, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, what is the one thing that when you started working as a school teacher that you did not expect?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the thing that I didn't expect was that it was going to be, when I first started teaching, that it was going to be so rewarding. Um, Man, one of the greatest feelings is to see a student who has, I don't want to use the word flaws, who isn't as good at something as they could be, and to see them work through that and become really good at it. I had students who couldn't write well and they really worked on it, and then they were great writers. I had students who couldn't spell well and they worked on it and they became great spellers.
And people
That
who couldn't read well?
Yes,
Dyslexia, yeah.
I had a student that couldn't read. He was in ninth grade, and I wasn't paid to do this, but I worked with him after school every single day for almost a year, and he became a phenomenal reader. That is stuff like that that makes being a teacher so amazing and phenomenal.
Wow. Well, how'd you get started in the educational field?
That's a funny one. And it's funny because I never wanted to be a teacher. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a rock star. And my grandmother, who had taught for many years, said, "You know what? You have the knack for teaching." She watched me, how I spoke to my friends. She watched me how I taught my dogs. And she said, "You had a knack for teaching." I thought teaching was boring. Well, you know what? When I started teaching, it was a friend of mine, a friend of the family, said, "We have a job opening. You should start doing this." And I kind of started way at the bottom. And I found out that it was, I was really good at it. And I went and became a certified teacher, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is the hardest part about being a school teacher of middle school kids?
The hardest part is classroom management. That's the hardest part, because, and I taught at-risk students. I taught honor students. I taught students that were troubled, all different levels, and they had one thing in common, and that was they liked to play around, and they liked to talk, and they liked to make jokes. All students, no matter if they're the smartest ones to ones that needed a lot of help, they all had that one thing in common. And if you have a teacher that doesn't know how to gain their attention and gain their respect and respect the students, they can have a lot of problems. So classroom management, getting the class to listen, that's the toughest thing. And I got lucky because I found out I developed some techniques very early that enabled my students to listen to me and to pay attention and to respect the classroom. And we did some wonderful things.
Cool. So what is that one thing that you think would make your job easier?
In teaching or in writing horror?
Writing horror.
One thing that will make my job easier is one thing that will make my job easier. That's a great question. And the only way I can answer that is I love the challenges of writing horror, and it's never easy. Every book is an adventure. And, that's kind of like asking me, if I was going on an adventure, how would I want the adventure to be easier? And you don't. You want the challenges. So I really don't want it to be easier. I love the challenges, and I love overcoming the challenges and seeing what happens in the outcome. If that's a good answer. Is that a good answer?
That's a good answer. Well, what advice would you give to my listeners if they want to grow up and be an author?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
What advice would you give to my listeners if they wanted to grow up and be an author?
The best advice that I can give any future author is to read. Read, read, read. I read to inhale, and I write to exhale. So inhaling and exhaling makes the best author. You have to read, read, read. So that's my advice.
So what about if they want to grow up and be a school teacher?
Well, I think the best thing for that route is to, when you get in college, you just study education, and you study a lot of different practices and how to be the best teacher and how to corral students and how to motivate students, as well as whatever the particular subjects are. I think that if you want to be a good school teacher, I think the best thing to do is, you know, to uh, to work with people as much as possible, volunteer, and learn how to socialize and learn how to work with different types of people, different types of ages, different types of groups, and those make the best teachers, I believe.
Okay. When you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Did you always know that you were going to be in the educational field?
No, I wanted to be a scientist. I used to play with maybe a zoologist, but I used to play with what we call lightning bugs. I used to catch lightning bugs. I used to play with bees, believe it or not, and they never stung me. I used to play with love bugs, those bugs that connect, they connect, their end to end connects. I wanted to just study science. I wanted to study insects. I was interested in astrology. And, I guess that's kind of why, I fell in love with stories that dealt with science, but in a very weird way, like the Twilight Zone and stories like that, and why I love science fiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is the one message that you want to get out to the kids all over the world about being an author of scary books?
Okay, one message I would like to give to all children, all students, all kids is that no matter how hard it may seem to you, you can get through it. You can do it. All it takes is practice. And what I say about practice, how people say practice makes perfect. I don't necessarily believe in that. But I say don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. And for students that want to be horror writers, once again, just read a lot of horror books. If you can meet horror authors and horror writers, become friends with them, allow them to be your mentors, talk to them, see what they do, study what they do, read what they write. And that's one of the best paths to being a horror writer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I read a radio show and podcast that talks about God during my Lion Strong segment coming up. Well, how do you include God's message in your work?
How do I include God's message in my work?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I did a few different things. One of the things as a writer that you don't want to do is preach to people. So you don't want to preach your concepts, but what you can do is have a variety of characters, and some characters may believe in your concept, and then you have the conflict where other characters don't believe in your conflict, and then you show how the two work. So one of the things that I do to have that theme of spirituality is I always show how that spirituality can work for a person and how it might not work for a person who don't believe in that. And then I let the reader decide upon themselves without telling people which way to go. So I think that's the way I do it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? You think that's a good way? What do you think, Tiberius?
That is a good way. But
Thanks.
What is the craziest thing that's happened while doing your passion?
The craziest thing that happened while doing my passion was when I won the Bram Stoker Award. Now, the Bram Stoker Award, for people who don't know what that is like for film people, the Academy Award. For music people, the Grammy Award. If you live in England or that area, the BAFTA, I think that's what it's called. And basically, the Bram Stoker is the most prestigious award that you can win that celebrates that author that wins in horror as being the best in the world. And when I won that for my young adult novel called Owari Mosaic, which is about a teenager who used to play virtual reality games to solve cold cases, when I wrote that and won that award, that was the craziest thing because I never knew that, I could write a book that was regarded as the best in the world. So that was the craziest.
What are cold cases again?
Cold cases are cases that the police can't solve. They weren't able to solve it, so they kind of put it in the back burner and say these weren't solved. These are cases that went cold. Hot cases that, they can find all the clues and they find the person that did the crime In cold
Okay.
cases, they just went cold. They couldn't.
Well, give me 2 years. Because I play virtual reality a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
I have my own VR headset actually in this office building.
What's your favorite game?
Definitely Gorilla Tag.
Gorilla Tag?
I won't go into that game right now, but we'll talk about that off air. But what was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
Woo! You ask better questions than adults. I love it. I love it. Okay, the biggest mistake I ever made was taking my craft for granted. I did most people who are creative do a lot of things in the arts. And I believe you have to figure out one thing that you do well and stick with it until you master it. But when you're creative, you want to write poetry, you want to dance, you want to sing, you want to rap, you want to draw, you want to paint. And all those different things, sometimes make it where you don't really succeed at one thing. Once you succeed at one thing, your fan base will love you for all the other things you do. So my biggest mistake was when I used to live with Britney Spears' manager, the co-manager. It was Doug Brown and Anthony. I forget his name. Doug Brown. I can't think of the other guy. Johnny Wright and Doug Brown. And I used to live with Doug Brown. And they were the co-managers at the time for Britney Spears, for Backstreet Boys, and for NSYNC. Backstreet Boys left them when they picked up NSYNC. And they had all these incredible artists back in the 90s when I used to live with them. And they put me in the studio. And instead of being ready, when he put me in the studio, I wasn't ready. I thought, let me just practice when I get in the studio. And once I get it right, I'll be okay. They came the first 10 minutes of my studio time and I wasn't ready. And I lost the respect. I lost the deal. I lost the whole situation. And, or by now, that was 20 something years ago, I would have been a big pop star, a big rock star by now, so I lost all of that. And I learned, always be prepared. Never take anything for granted. If you have to study to be better, if you have to go to school to be better in your craft, go to school for it. Don't take it for granted. Don't think that you can do it because you're great. Go to school for it. Have great teachers. Have great mentors. I learned all of that in that one big failure.
Okay. Now can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid show, but that one story, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
Okay. Okay. Wow. I gotta think about that. Let me think. I gotta think quick. You got me on the spot. One story that I can't tell you about, but kid friendly. Wow.
It's like a quick draw.
Huh? What'd you say?
It's like a quick draw.
Yeah, quick draw. I think one story that I really can't tell you about, or that I haven't really told anyone about, is that I secretly always wanted to be a rock star, right? Mm-hmm. And like I said before, I never took the time to study it, to practice it, to go to school for it, to really hone my craft and develop my craft. Well, just recently, I was able to record a song. And not only did I record the song, it's based on a book that I'm writing now called Blood Teens, which is about young vampires, and about a young rock star, a young female rock star who was a vampire. And I did the song, recorded the song, and was actually able to get incredible pioneer hip hop artist to also do a little guest rap on the song. His name is Fredro Starr from the group called Onyx. And once he got on the song, it made the song, it's going to be released soon. And it's probably going to be one of the first songs written by a horror author that's inspired by his book. And it is a really cool rock song. And, I'm probably not supposed to tell anybody that because, it's under wraps.
200,000 people are now going to hear it.
Hey, there you go. So,
or unless we cut it out, but. Well, do you have a website or Facebook for my listeners who want to follow you?
Yeah, so my My real middle name is Nzondi. That's N as in Nancy, Zondi, Nzondi. So if you Google me, Nzondi, or if you go on Yahoo and do a search for Nzondi, or Bing and do a search for Nzondi, you'll find pretty much any of the things that I'm involved in, all the articles, all the podcasts, the stories. But also, if you go on Facebook and you put in Ace Antonio Hall, you'll find my Facebook page. If you go to Instagram, you'll find my Instagram page. If you go to TikTok, you put in Nzondi, you'll find my TikTok. And if you go to Twitter, you put in Nzondi3, the number 3, Nzondi, and the number 3, you'll find my Twitter page. That's pretty much about it.
Well, what is the one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
The one question is, what's the name of my books? And do I have any books coming out now? And do I have any future projects coming out?
Well, do you?
Well, so this book came out last September, and it's called Lipstick Asylum. Lipstick Asylum is really scary. Ooh. So that book came out last September, and it's doing pretty well. And I'm very proud of it. And it's about a vampire. It's about a zombie slasher. She does martial arts, and she goes on this trip, to have a little fun. And it's kind of like a zombie trip. And guess what? It turns real. And she has to kind of find out why these people turn into zombies. But in the process of doing that, she dies and becomes one herself. And she has to save the world as a zombie. So That's what that book's about. And I'm working on a book right now. I kind of mentioned it. It's called Blood Teens. It has another title as well, which is so innovative. I won't say it until it comes out. But the subtitle of it is called Blood Teens. And it's about a teenage rock star and a bunch of other teens that she has worked with to help solve a case. And so, yeah.
Well, thank you, Nzondi, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Yeah, love to.
Do you like math?
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
Well, thank you, Nzondi, for helping me with Math Corners. Well, today, we're still talking about two-step inequality word problems in school. You know my dad is going to love finding me another word problem to solve. You ready? Okay,
Yeah.
Here we go. Daniel had $25 to spend at a fair. If the admission to the fair is $4 and the rides cost $1.50 each, what is the greatest number of rides Daniel can go on? Okay, so first we have to write the inequality statement. That would be the money he has is greater than or equal to the cost of admission plus the cost of the rides times the number of rides he can ride. So it would be 4 plus 1.5 times R is less than or equal to 25. So now you just subtract the $4 from both sides. You get the 1.5 times R is less than or equal to 21. Now you divide 1.5 and get, 14 rides.
Wow. I think I'll stick to R.
Right?
That's great. Wow.
Well, this means he can ride no more than 14 rides.
That's a lot of rides, though. That's a lot of fun.
It is. So, Nzondi, do you now know all about solving two-step inequality word problems?
Yes, I know now. Thanks to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And my teacher says that I would use math every day. Do you use math in your job?
Yeah, not really that much. Not when I'm writing hard. I don't use math that much.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nzondi, for your help with Math Corners.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. Well, this week we're going to talk about nobility. For me, I think nobility is remembering we are God's special possessions and acting in a noble way, showing courage and honor. Well, the qualities of nobility are goodness, virtue, honor, generosity, and selflessness. So, last week, I was at the park by my studio in College Park. There were not many kids around, and it looked like it was going to be a boring visit. But then across the street, I saw this girl shooting hoops in her driveway. She was pretty good. I asked my dad if I could cross the street, and after he said yes, I walked over and introduced myself. I asked if we could shoot hoops together. She said yes, and that she was getting ready for a big basketball game. We shot for about 30 minutes before she had to go. Now, she could have told me no and that she had to practice her shots, but instead she was selfless, not only with her time, but with her resources, and shared the ball with me and allowed me to play with her for some time. Being selfless is a good example of nobility. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. That's wow, that was a great experience and a very teaching one.
Mm-hmm. So, Nzondi, did you see or use nobility at all this week?
You know what? I'm going to give that to you. I think you are the prime example or the premier example of using nobility.
Okay. Well, of all of the Heart of a Lion virtues, which is your favorite?
Read them to me again. Or say them to me again. What's all of them?
Leadership, integrity, obedience, nobility.
I think integrity, but I would say it's tied between integrity and leadership. Leadership is very, very important to me, especially as a teacher. I wanted to try to teach my students how to become leaders. I always used to say, leaders find a way, losers find no way. And as being a leader, no matter what obstacles that you had, you'd always find a way to overcome those obstacles. But integrity is also just as important because I believe if you're true to yourself and honest with yourself and honest with people, I think you can really find that your life can be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
I believe that. Lion strong. I love that.
Mid-State Fire has been providing top-quality fire equipment services for 3 generations to the Central Florida area. Don't wait for an emergency to repair. Call Mid-State Fire today at 407-246-8855. Get your fire extinguishers and emergency.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Nzondi.
Thank you. Had a lot of fun.
Being on my show.
I had a lot of fun. Great host. You're an even better guy, and this was a fantastic time. Great time.
You're welcome. And it has been so much to talk about today. I think we learned a lot about what it's like to be a school teacher and write very cool books. Be nice to your teachers, kids, because this is a really cool person.
Yeah, and if you want to see more or hear more, just go on and Google Ace Antonio Hall or Nzondi. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Come and follow me, and I'll follow you right back.
Also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and like and subscribe. Also, be sure to listen to us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.